The Who's the Daddy mystery has been solved.
And apparently the name of Dirty Den lives on.
Now Sharon's a nana and her flat is a creche.
But will Jada want back in?
I'm Alex.
I'm Rob.
And this is the Walford Weekly Podcast. Hello everyone and welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes that were released on the BBC in the UK from Monday the 8th to Friday the 12th of November. And joining us this week for our disquisition of the soap, it's Rob!
Hello everybody, how are you this week? Well done, Alex, that was a very long word that you just said, right first time.
Thank you, I learnt it very early.
Yes, I'm very well this week, so a bit of behind the scenes extra knowledge this week. I was at work last night, barely slept, and I'm here. You know, I finished work at 6 o'clock this morning, and just, we started recording this we started talking to each other about 12:30. It's been about half an hour of preamble before we got to where we are now. So, if I go into the slightly realms of fantasy, later on in this podcast, then that's why. But I'm a super trooper. And I'm here to do this week's podcast. So let's crack on before I pass out.
That's great, Rob. Honestly, and I'm sure everyone watching or listening is very happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're here. I really am.
Thank you.
Thrilled to pieces.
Thanks.
A couple of things. First of all, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but there's a video came up yesterday, as this is aired, for our discussion about Jon Sen's news, because anyone who hasn't watched the video yet, and if you haven't, why not? But you can watch it, but there's a link at the top of the screen. Jon Sen is leaving the soap as executive producer. Mm-hmm. We talked about it in great length and what we think the future of the show may be. So I strongly recommend that after you've watched or listened to this podcast, you go back and have a watch or listen to that too. And another thing, Rob, is that I found out this week that we are on Audible as well. So anyone who has an Audible subscription, please find us on there as well. And as always, please feel free, whatever you listen to us on or watch us on, to leave us a review. It helps us a lot, and it's always very nice, especially when you say more nice things about me than you do about Rob.
No. You just no. So we got a very nice review from what was his name? It was beginning with D. What was the name? Don't pretend you haven't got it written down.
I can't remember. I haven't got it written down. Davey.
Davey,
I do have it written
yes.
down.
Yes. Davey sent us a very nice review on Audible. Said that he really enjoyed the podcast and found us both very funny, especially Alex. So, if you think I've heard nothing but that for the past 24 hours, then you are harshly mistaken. I am.
I'm the Barry Chuckle to my Paul.
Yeah, I mean, out of the two of us, you knew that I'd be the straight man, you know? There you go. So thank you very much, Davey, for leaving us that nice review. Please feel free, if you're on Audible, check us out. Apparently we're on there as well. We didn't even know that. So yeah, great.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
We're on loads.
There you are. Yeah, we're everywhere.
Loads.
Can't get rid of us. Billboards like next. Yeah, you're going to be listening to us on planes all over the world soon. That's the next aim. I'd love to imagine that if you can tune into Walford Weekly on like a little plane channel. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That'd be nice.
Like
an EasyJet. I think we're more EasyJet than we are British Airways.
I think we're more Ryanair, in all honesty. But there you go. So that would make a 15-hour flyby, wouldn't it? Anyway, Alex, what a week it's been in EastEnders this week. We're both very smug because we got a big old theory, right, that we've been saying since last week. So that's us this week.
Yes. Yeah, that's us done. I mean, that's the end of the show. Let's just go.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. See you next week.
Bye. No, keep listening or watching because we'll be talking about how we got something right for a change a little bit later on. It's the Sharon story. But first of all, we're going to talk about Nancy and Mick and Frankie. And Frankie has decided that she feels that maybe the Carters need a little bit of time without her. She needs to make her distance and go visit a friend. Make Nancy maybe reassess exactly her feelings toward her dad. and the introduction of a new sister in her family. I mean, it was nice to see this week that Nancy did show remorse about locking Frankie in the boot. I think that was the right choice to make, because you worried me last week when you started saying that you thought that Nancy might be a bit like, nah, I don't care. I'll do it again if you ask me. I'll do it 100 times over.
Yeah. I mean, no. I mean, the thing is, I always thought that I could see why Nancy was so kind of put out by the whole thing, because Frankie, she's been in Mick's life for her entire life, you know. She's been there as normal daughters come along, you know, just sort of there from birth, and it's like, that's my dad, that's my mum, hurrah. And then Frankie has been around for 5 minutes effectively, and Mick is sticking up for her and telling Nancy that she needs to get over the fact that she was hit by her sister in a car and, you know, nearly died, you know, just get over that, Nancy, right? Just get over yourself. So I sort of understood why she was kind of feeling that way. We opened the week this week because if you were there last week, you will know that we left last week with Frankie locked in the boot of a car with Liam driving around the square like a psychopath for no reason whatsoever. Turns out he took her to this sort of deserted car park in the middle of nowhere. Where was this? Why? I don't understand quite where he drove her to. No, we don't know. But anyway, I don't know.
None of this makes sense for me.
Anyway, Frankie was there, left in there all night. All night she was just left in there. Liam couldn't hear a thing because he was listening to ridiculous music. And then Janine goes into work the next day, aware that Liam has kind of nicked this car, and then begins to understand by little pieces that have been put together. You know, Nancy is saying that, you know, Frankie didn't come home last night. Somehow I can't remember how she managed to work out that Frankie was in the boot. I can't quite remember how those pieces were tied together, but either way, she does, and basically relays to Liam, yeah, you've done a very silly thing, young fella, me lad. So you need to go sort that out. And Liam goes back to the car and sort of just looks at it fearfully, as though it's going to attack him at any moment, and then suddenly starts hearing this kind of knocking from the door, realising, oh my god, there is a woman in my car. There's a woman in that car boot. What the hell am I going to do? So, after a bit of consultation with Janine, he drives her back to the square, and we don't know how exactly Frankie is found in the car. We are led to believe that... I don't know. There was no sort of reveal scene for Frankie sort of being let out of the car. She just sort of turned up at the Vic, looking all sort of dishevelled and dehydrated, we were told by Nurse Sonia.
Yeah, Sonia.
Yeah,
that's
dehydrated.
Right. Sonia came in with her and said,
yes.
Other than being dehydrated, she's fine. And then, and it's such a strange thing for me just to think, at the time. But I did think to myself, how did Frankie go to the toilet? I kind of expected her to be a little bit
all Bear Grylls on the situation. That's why she was dehydrated. That's what you do, isn't it?
Was there like a jerry can there? And That's
what Bear Grylls would do. Locked in a boot, drink your wee. That's what he'd do.
Drink your own wee from a jerry can.
Yeah, so we're not quite sure how Frankie was sort of let out of the boot. We're led to believe that Liam sort of left the car somewhere in a helpful place where someone would inevitably hear her knocking, unlike the place that she was when she was first locked in the boot, which was outside the Vic in a busy street. No one heard her there, but wherever Liam left her, she was heard.
She was found. But no, wasn't she let out of the boot? Wasn't that the thing that he said? That Sonia said that she was found already out the boot. So did Liam unlock
just wandering around the streets?
Yeah,
this dehydrated, soiled woman.
Not coming up with the idea of maybe I should buy a bottle of water. What do I do now?
I don't know what I'm doing.
I just thought
it's very odd. Very odd.
It was just another example of how things weren't explained. It was just you fill in the pieces. You're the viewer. Fill them in for yourself.
It's best not to ask questions.
And I just thought, it was best not to ask questions. I liked the aftermath of it though. I liked that Janine then kind of said, "Well, you're a fool. You kidnapped a woman without thinking, and now you're going to be basically a cut of the money is being taken away from you, and you can no longer work for us anymore." The big corporation of Billy and Janine, that they clink mugs with each other whilst having their full up fried breakfast in Kathy's cafe. So I was glad with the aftermath with that. But Liam then found a new plan, didn't he? Where he decided that he was going to...
Well, it wasn't really a new plan, was it? It was exactly the same plan that he'd done before, except that he was in a different place and wasn't wearing very much when he did it.
No.
Yeah, so, I mean, Frankie's gone off because she's realised that Nancy needs to, sort of spend time with her dad. She's like, it's all right, mate, it's all right. I've got a ballroom I need to get to, so I can go and do that whilst you sort things out with your father. Everything's fine. So I wasn't expecting Frankie to actually go off for a little bit. I understand why Rose is taking her time off to go and do Strictly, and God, is she doing well, by the way. Doing amazingly. We're very proud of her.
Love her.
We love her. She's doing really amazingly. Good. We're very proud of her. So, yeah.
The fact that we're talking about Strictly shows that we're enjoying it last year. This year.
Sorry, Maisie. You were amazing on there too. You were. So it's now just a case of Nancy and Mick trying to make things up. And it seems that, Nancy is slowly starting to melt a little bit, and she's kind of spoken her mind to Mick a little bit and said, this is how I'm feeling. And Mick was looking at her and go, I never thought of any of this. Wow, thank you for finally. Thank you. I'm glad we had this chat. I'm so pleased because apparently none of that occurred to him whatsoever. What do you think? See, again, you've sort of got Janine in the background, sort of stirring the pot, because she was effectively the one that got rid of Frankie. Wasn't she? I don't quite know why though.
Yeah, she kind of whispered in her ear.
Yeah, is she sort of like trying to just sort of empty the Vic of people? Is she sort of just trying to empty the Vic of people and then sort of get Mick to herself? Because I think we're being led to believe that she's sort of got her eye on Mick, aren't we? So is Nancy next?
That's the impression I'm.
Yes.
That's the impression I'm getting, that she saw that Frankie and Mick were probably the closer of the two at the moment, because she kind of watched on Nancy and Mick having that conversation in the pub, and kind of watched on, kind of thinking, okay, I've got another one in their way now. It seems to me that ultimately Janine's trying to get closer with Mick, and it seems to be working as well, because Mick and Janine's friendship, because I don't want to call it a relationship, because I don't want it to go any further than a friendship.
Don't jinx it.
I really hope it doesn't. And she's clearly trying to get her way into the Vic, isn't she? I mean, it'd be interesting if there is a respite somewhere where Janine actually does end up getting the Vic somehow. I wonder if that's a story coming down the line for Janine, and that, like we said last week, like maybe she's trying to build up the empire around the square. She's got the car lot. She's trying to get off Jay, now trying to get the Vic. Bit by bit, she's getting the pieces together.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Janine does best, though, isn't it? It sort of looks around the square, and it's almost like she's playing Risk all over again, just taking over the square. Because there was a time when Janine basically owned about 75% of Albert Square. She could look at houses and go, "Yep, that's mine. That's mine. That's mine. That's mine. That will be mine." She's got her fingers in a lot of pies at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to see what Janine's next move is. I'm so pleased Janine's back. I know I keep saying it, but she's back. I love Janine. I'm so happy she's back.
Yeah. And she felt like she was back this week as well.
Yeah.
It felt like Janine this week.
It
felt like Janine.
She was a bitch this week, wasn't she? She was a proper bitch this week.
Oh, she was super bitch.
Yeah, she was like being horrible to people, and like even Billy, who's supposed to be a mate at the moment, she was going, I don't need your opinion. Shut up, Billy. Which, to be fair, every character has said at some point to Billy. So
even we said to Billy at some point.
Every week Alex says that to Billy. It's all very good. So that then takes us on to, I think, we spoke of Liam and sort of his involvement in that story this week.
Yeah, so Tiff has started is it like a party business where she organises parties for brides or hen parties? I know, just pluck an idea out the air, and why not? Let's run with it. She has, and Liam decided to help. He didn't want to help.
Very successfully as well. She's got like loads of 5-star reviews, she was saying. Like, this is what happens this week was the first 1-star review she's got. Other than that, this is a booming business. Where is this going?
Yeah, but that 1-star review has now degraded her 5-star review, and she's now gone down to like a 3-star review. And she asked everyone who would listen to her, like, does a 1-star review affect whether you're going to use a business? And everyone said yes. And I felt a bit like, one 1-star review amongst many, many 5-star reviews is normally just like not going to happen. It's a drop in the ocean, sure.
Take a look at our podcast.
But yeah, she's very concerned about this.
Yes.
Exactly. But so I don't know. I don't know whether that's heading anywhere. I just felt like, unless they were just kind of stringing along Tiff somehow, kind of being a little bit feel like she can't go out on her own, and that she feels like she needs Keegan, because there was a lot of longing looks toward Keegan this week as well, when she kept looking at him and kind of thinking, oh, maybe I should give him another chance. But Keegan this week spotted or overheard Liam having a conversation with someone after he sold the car off after the hen party.
Yes.
Warned Tiff, and Tiff was like, nope. He's my brother, and blood is thicker than water, and I'm not going to believe you. And so Keegan's kind of been thrown out on his ear again, leaving Tiff to now get closer to Aaron, which seems to be quite dangerous as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just everything about Aaron makes my skin crawl already. Like, he's just such a slime ball. And Tiff apparently is. See, the thing is, I think Tiff's in rebound mode at the moment. Unfortunately, with Aaron, it's more of a ricochet. Because he's the sort of person that can just ring up a connection and say, "Oh yeah, I can book us a hotel, a whole hotel. I've got the Ritz booked for the entire building, and we're going to go on the roof garden, and we're going to have lots of wine.
It's 5 stars. Yeah, but it's got one star review, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so Tiff has the end of the week basically is Tiff going off with Aaron, and implying that they're in for a wild night together, because Tiff is essentially convinced that she needs to get over Keegan, and the only way to get over Keegan is to go and shag a right-wing activist. Clearly, So that's how I do it.
We've all been there.
This is how I do it. So I mean, Keegan's sort of left out in the cold. Liam, meanwhile, is sort of drifting between hating Keegan. 2 weeks ago, he was really not a fan of Aaron because he effectively stood Tiffany up so much. But I think he's now decided that he prefers Aaron to Keegan. So I think Aaron is sort of starting to fool people in the square a little bit. Where do Tiff and Aaron go from here? What is this night going to? Are they going to be a couple next week? The speed this is going at the minute, they'll probably be married by this time next week. But what do you think?
Again, it's not surprising if that should happen. They come back and got married. I don't know. I think Tiff and Aaron are going to become a couple. It's just how is Tiff going to discover Aaron's views? Because I think Aaron isn't very good at hiding stuff, is he? He kind of hides it amongst money.
We've worked it out really quickly.
Power.
Yes.
Well, we did. But but
careless washing that blood off his hands in front of us, wasn't it?
Yeah. How silly of him.
Aaron.
Silly of him. I don't know if it's going to be Keegan who spots it, if it's going to be Liam who spots it. I mean, the thing is that Tiff is basically being surrounded by so many men that are just all not
awful, good
people.
Yeah. Awful men.
It's quite destroying to the whole character of Tiff. I mean, did you feel like this week that Tiff, the character, just felt a little bit like she just couldn't be bothered anymore? Like, it felt to me that the character just felt a bit deflated by the whole everything that's happening to her, and the only thing that kind of excited her was her business. And even then, that kind of the rug got pulled from underneath her when she saw that 1-star review. I just feel, I mean, it feels like Tiff's ending is a coming upon us. A coming.
You only use the word "a coming" if there's a hurricane coming. So I mean, I think the problem with Tiff this week is the fact that she had to sort of beg, borrow, and steal the venue off Dottie. So that kind of put her in a bad mood to start off with, because the last thing she wants at the minute is to be
someone else who's upset her.
Well, yeah, but for understandable reasons, so the last thing that she wants is to actually go to the woman who slept with her husband and say, "Can I borrow your club, please, for my event that I wasn't doing this time last week, but I've now started doing. Thanks very much." And then so they got this really sort of like needy bride in, apparently, who's an absolute bridezilla, according to all of her mates, whose night was not going to be complete, and she was going to leave a 5-star review if there wasn't a naked waiter in front of her that very moment. Now, I would argue that that's not a marriage that's going to succeed. That's not a marriage that's going to succeed. If your hen night is dependent, the success of your hen night is dependent on the fact that there's a naked man in front of you that's not your husband. Love, what are you doing? Sort yourself out. It did give us a chance to see.
She just wanted a good time.
Well, don't we all? But it did give us a chance to see the new Liam half naked. Not bad at all. Yep, enjoyed that. Especially in this Dicky bow. It was quite nice. EastEnders has got a thing about.
No Frank Butcher, was he?
Well, he wasn't.
Frank Butcher had a Dicky bow, and he looks far better Far better. I'd rather Frank came from the dead and came through those doors with the tray in his hand, handing out hors d'oeuvres and drinks to the ladies. And I bet she would have got a 5-star review as well if it had been Frank Butcher as well. Especially if they had Pat in the corner on the bar, propping up a drink with a cigarette.
I mean, if your tastes are something to be amazed at. So, I mean, I did enjoy it. The thing is, they seem to be turning Liam into, they're doing that thing with him where they've sort of, right, so they brought him in, and I didn't really like you when he first came in because he was just being bolshy and chavvy and sort of like unpleasant to people. And now they're doing that thing, they did that thing this week where literally nobody has ever done this in their entire life. When you're doing the washing up or something, people sing along to the radio. It does happen. Nobody acts like they're on Strictly and sort of like going, no one does that. But they've done that to me this week. Yeah.
But even the actor looked embarrassed doing that in front of the sink. Did you not think that the actor looked really embarrassed doing that scene? Like, I was embarrassed for him. The whole time I was like, oh dear. Well, oh dear. No,
that's what, yeah.
I think we're done with the butchers, to be honest with you. I think we've said enough.
Go on then, move on.
Right, so we've got coming up now the big story, which is Martin, Zack, and Sharon, and little baby nanny Sharon now has fully embraced the baby and wants the child in her life, but not without the rocky road that led to it, because she first of all didn't want to admit that her son had sex or made a girl pregnant either. I mean, this was our big revelation. We spotted this from the moment the baby was left on the doorstep, that Sharon basically was the nan, and it wasn't Zack's child and it wasn't Martin's child. I say Martin was involved in this story, but really he wasn't involved at all. It was very much Zack.
I know, as soon as you worked out that it's not mine. Good luck, mate. So walked off. Yes. So yeah, it's officially Dennis's, little Denny's. Now the thing is, the thing I found difficult about this week was there's nothing wrong with Jada's actress. Perfectly good at delivering her lines, was, having a good old scene with Letitia Dean. Absolutely perfect. She looks a little bit older than Denny was when he died. She looks about 18, the actress.
Oh, and a lot older.
Yeah, that automatically makes, and not once did Sharon ask her, how old are you? Just like, how old were you when this happened? Excuse me, young lady. Just threw a lot of shade her way. Nothing more was said from Sharon apart from, why would you want to sleep with you? So I think you're missing the priority of the question.
That was a horrible line, wasn't it? Especially you. Especially you,
yeah, she said. Yeah. Especially you. So I think Sharon was far more concerned with the fact that she just wanted to attack anybody that had been with her son. That she was just so young. And he is young. He was young when this happened. Now, I've had a few days to kind of get over this. You sort of realise it does happen. Unfortunately, this is a thing that happens. Young kids do stupid things, and young pregnancies do happen, and unfortunately, it is perfectly possible for a 14-year-old to suddenly find himself as a father. Unfortunately, father is not around to take this responsibility, so that now leaves Sharon with yet another child to deal with. Her flat is now slowly turning into a creche. She's got Albie. And she's now got Alyssa to look after. Now she's got Zack to kind of help her along, but Sharon, I think, is starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed by all these screaming children that she's going to have to deal with. Now my question with this is now, how long do you think Jada's done? Do you think that we're going to see more from Jada in the future, or do you think she's going to change her mind? Because it was she seemed quite determined to sort of give the baby to Sharon, but I got the sense this week that there was going to be regret in the future.
Yeah, I mean, they're showing attachment between Sharon and especially Zack as well. Zack seems to have taken up the mantle.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming that that's like you say, the story could be that Jada returns and decides maybe with her father, because she said her mum died, or was it the other way around? Her dad had died.
Yeah, mum's died and dad is just spectacularly unhelpful, I think was the basic kind of thing of it.
Yeah, where he told her to get a job and she was a bit like, well, it's a bit difficult at the moment because I have a child. Yeah. Which is right to say.
I've got a job, got a baby.
So she did. I was a bit surprised that they didn't go down the route that she didn't ask for money. She said, here's your child. I want some money.
That's a good point.
So almost showing her as a very unloving, because at the moment I don't know what her relationship is with her child at the moment, whether it is one that she feels regretful that she feels like she's in a situation where she has to give it away, or whether that she really doesn't give two hoots about the baby and kind of just wants to palm it off to anyone who would probably give it better care. At the moment, I'm leaning toward the latter. I think that she's kind of palming it off to someone who she believes would give better care, which would then, I think, lead to her returning at some point and perhaps breaking up, breaking Zack and Sharon's heart when she says she wants the child back. Because they're going down the legal routes as well, old Sharon and Zack, which is very unheard for.
Sharon had a Zoom meeting.
EastEnders.
Yes.
Normally they just write up contracts all by themselves and sign them in blood, and then that's the end of it.
That's done.
But this time she's going down the legal route.
Which is very unusual for Sharon. She's not used to this sort of malarkey. I think, when you think of it like that, it's actually quite possible to think that Jada there is a level of care there. If she'd have turned around and said and go, that's your son, that's your grandson, that's your granddaughter, and I'll have £10,000, please, thank you very much. And that would suggest a mother who is completely and utterly unattached from her child and sees it as nothing more than a money-grabbing opportunity, which we have seen a plenty of times over the years. But yeah, the fact that she sent it, the slightly questionable moral thing of leaving a baby out in the cold in a basket, but that's who's perfect. Yeah, the fact that she's kind of hunted Sharon down. I like the fact that Zack asked, how did she find our address? And again, it wasn't answered. Sharon just ignored that question, which I could have done with the answer to, but never mind.
More plot holes for us to fill.
Honestly, we're like Charlie Dimmock filling in all these holes in the garden. Yeah. Do you know what? She annoys me. Her hair kind of, just an irrelevant thing here. Charlie Dimmock really annoys me because she's got hair constantly down when she's trying to pot plants and all that kind of thing. And she's constantly brushing that out of her hair. And one episode she was doing a trellis and her hair was everywhere and she was constantly brushing it out of her hair. She went, right, I just need to tie this up. Do you know what? She took off her wrist? A hairband to tie up the trellis. Didn't think to tie up her hair, just the trellis. Really annoys me. Anyway, so yeah, okay. So I think that Jada is.
Sleep is soon, Rob.
I think that Jada is someone that's going to be coming kind of backwards and forwards. I think when she gets a little bit older, she's going to realise what she's done. Because she was looking at the kid with some affection, wasn't she? She was talking about, I just want the best for her. And clearly you are the best solution to it right now. I mean, Christ, if Sharon Mitchell's the best solution to your kid, then there really are problems on the horizon. But, come on.
I beg your pardon?
Left her on a doorstep in Albert Square. She lives in Albert Square, for goodness sake. No child should ever be left alone in Albert Square. Yeah, but Sharon is the best solution.
Sharon is the best solution to any problem. Need a night out? Sharon.
Yeah.
Need a talk? Go to Sharon.
Yeah. Should we talk about the latest entry to the Mitchell edition of Sharon's birth? Let's just think about how great, and how morally great that was. The kid came along from an affair that she was having with a 19-year-old. That's how Albie arrived on the square. So, in fairness, the kid will learn things. It'll learn life lessons.
You've just reminded me. Sharon's had the affair with Keanu, who was a much younger guy. We don't know the age of Jada. Is there some kind of symmetry they're trying to show there?
Maybe, but I'd argue that Keanu. I'd argue Keanu.
Or is that just something we're trying to find?
Well, I'd argue Keanu at least was legal, so Sharon wasn't really doing anything wrong there. Well, she was, but nothing illegally wrong. So. This is the bit. So that's the big thing this week. That Dennis was the father of the kid. Sharon's now got two kids to look after with Zack. Martin's run away. Martin's gone to the pub because he's like, well, nothing to do with me. Then see you later. And I think that's basically our prediction, isn't it? That Jada is going to decide that she wants to. She will come back into the kid's life at some point. She's going to. And Sharon seems to have become quite maternal towards Jada. I thought. She sort of looked at her and thought I could almost see some of her own mistakes in Jada, because Sharon's never been one to sort of live a completely innocent life, has she? She could sort of see how a girl could find herself in this situation, and she's made many a relationship mistake in her past. And I think the other big thing this week was, when Sharon was sat there throwing barbed at her, Jada quite happily returned, yeah, well, your son hated you and said really nasty things about you just before we slept together or something. But it was nice that she kind of got that feeling of sort of, yeah, but what he always does say to you is that you never gave up and clearly were always there for him, which I think has clearly been troubling Sharon ever since, and possibly why she reacted so insanely to the death and everything with Ian, and, maybe all of that was sort of motivated by the fact that she was so kind of stricken by the fact that Denny didn't like her and didn't love her, and that she had made such huge mistakes as a mother that's the dying thoughts of her son. Yeah?
Right. Okay. So you're explaining away the poisoned Christmas pudding then for the fact that Sharon was so grief-struck that she thought her son hated her when he died that she then wanted to kill Ian Bill.
Trying.
I'm glad that you're trying. I really am. But yes, I'm looking forward to more of that story though. And like you say, the relationship with Sharon and Zack continues to grow stronger and stronger as well, which I like too. So that's fun.
Yes.
Another relationship that, is it growing stronger or is it just is I don't know, is Ballum. We got the Ballum story this week, which was Ben and Callum deciding that, Callum decided that he wanted to go out more, be more gay. Go to the nightclub.
Dress up as Boy George.
Before we kind of George Boy. Before we go any further, have you ever in your entire life heard of the term baby gay?
Never in my entire life.
Because I never
want to hear it again.
I know. And the way he says it as well is a little bit kind of creepy. It's like, I'm a baby gay, Ben. I'm a baby gay. I went on Urban Dictionary to find out what baby grey stood for, or it meant, and it basically means a guy who's come out a little bit later in his life.
Oh, okay.
And he's
that makes sense.
Kind of very excited about, he's very excited about like going out and doing like the gay culture and learning about like the scene and so on and so forth. But then it says at the end, for between 1 to 2 years. So there's this very definitive time frame for when you're a baby gay. And it has kind of been out for longer than 2 years. So technically, Callum's no baby gay. So Callum's a toddler gay or a teenage gay.
An adolescent gay. I think that's interesting because I think it's the sort of term that sticks. To be honest with you, ever so slightly cringeworthy as I found this storyline, especially with the revelation that Ben apparently has slept with people in triple figures. I mean, same, Ben, same. In fact, I'd argue quadruple figures for me.
Oh, good for you.
Meh.
Can't keep count.
No, I lost count at 12. Yes, I actually thought there was an element of intrigue in this storyline this week. Because if you think about it,
all right, put
yourself in Callum's shoes, in his weird little boy George shoes for a moment, and consider that Ben Mitchell is the first person that the first man that you've ever slept with, and you've gone straight to him, and you've got married, and, you've had everything that's gone on with being in the life of Ben Mitchell. And yet, Ben Mitchell is somebody that has more than his fair share of experience going left, right and centre with any man that kind of crossed his path. I wonder whether there genuinely would be a serious thought in your head of, what have I missed out on? Should I have done? Should I have done some of that? Should I have been a bit more promiscuous before I decided to snog Ben in a park with the moonlight shining on me? Should that have been a factor that I should have done? After I kind of got rid of the girlfriend that I was with at the time. And I actually wondered whether they were going to go down a little bit of a sort of Callum suggesting to Ben, how do you feel about other people coming into this relationship? I met somebody who was dressed as Freddie Mercury tonight, and frankly, I want to break free. So I wondered if he was.
Stay for the puns, everyone. Stay for the puns.
Do you know what I mean, though? I was sort of, there were moments of head in hands with it this week, but I was sort of like, I kind of get Callum's thinking. I do kind of understand where he's coming from, but I don't know whether it's actually going to go anywhere, because it seemed to be more focused on this week. After Callum had been out on this night out all on his own, which, I tell you what, it's more than what I can do. I couldn't sit in a bar dressed as Boy George and sort of hope for the best. He was having a great time. He was having a great time. Got drunk and got chatted up by somebody who dressed as Freddie Mercury. Who was calling himself Freddie, by the way, as well. I wondered whether that was his actual name or whether...
Oh, no, I think it was just so he could
just a character
refer
name
to him. That's why he just put Freddie, because he put inverted commas on there as well. So he just said, oh, Freddie, and there's my number. I think that was what the reason was.
Well, because of course, this is the other thing. Is the fact that when he was chatting to this guy, Freddie, turned around to him and said, yeah, well, me and my husband have an arrangement. It's fine, you know. And I think Callum's eyes were almost open there. So, wait, that's a thing? We can do that? So, I wonder if it's... open relationships. So I wonder whether this is going to be a sort of exploration of sort of relationships like that within the gay community, which actually is a topic that isn't really discussed, because I think that sort of thing is looked upon as maybe a little bit sleazy, maybe a little bit sort of... But it's actually quite common. Not massively common, but it does happen quite a fair bit. I've met quite a few people that are in those sorts of relationships in the gay community, and it's not something that's ever really been covered in sort of a primetime drama. So I'd be kind of interested to see that explored a little bit, wouldn't you? Yeah. In any way?
Yeah, it had been explored a little bit with Ruby, if you remember rightly, when she told Max that she was in open relationships, and then as soon as Max and her were not together anymore, she then wanted a baby with Martin, so that was forgotten. Another remnants of an era that we will soon forget. And then
you're a bitter little bitch this week, aren't you?
I think you're right. I think it would be interesting to see this story, and it's interesting that Ben is jealous. I find that interesting that Ben's the one who's jealous. Well, yeah, because... And Callum's having to almost talk him down.
Yeah, because, well, this is the thing. I think Ben has always kind of, you know, he loves Callum, yes, there's no denying that. But I think Ben has always sort of, his picture in his head of what this relationship that he is with Callum is like, yeah, I love Callum and he's mine, yeah. And he would never consider cheating on me. That's not a thing. You wouldn't cheat on me. I'm Ben Mitchell. I'm the stud. I'm the best thing that's ever happened to this boy. Why on earth would he cheat on me? And all of a sudden he said his eyes open to the possible fact that, wait, he might cheat on me. Because actually, Ben is quite a paranoid person. You know, we've seen Ben sort of a couple of times in the Callum relationship sort of going, what are you doing? Look at him for. What are you doing that for? Are you engaged to Whitney again? What's going on? So it's, I think it might be quite interesting to sort of explore that in a relationship and sort of, I'm open to it in all honesty, ironically. I'm open to the idea of them sort of exploring that aspect of relationships and doing it properly rather than it just being a sort of, because a lot of people do it. A lot of people have these sorts of relationships, and it's never really been covered before. It would be quite an interesting topic to discuss. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
I'm on board. Ting ting. I think it'd be interesting to see how it goes further down. I mean, the other thing is, has Ben ever had anything to warrant like his paranoia in a relationship?
Oh God, no.
Because when he was like, no, because I don't think anyone has ever cheated on him behind.
I mean, the worst he was probably the worst thing.
Callum's...
The worst was Luke, I think, wasn't it? I think that's the only real relationship Luke's ever, that Callum's Ben's ever had to worry about,
wasn't he?
He was
worse than Ben.
Yeah, he was, but I think that's the only kind of relationship that's kind of ever really given Ben cause for concern. Because I think he seems to forget that Callum is what Ben was when he first got with Paul. You know, this sort of somebody who doesn't really understand the community, somebody who's sort of been secluded away from it all, and all of a sudden he's with somebody that's really open and quite happy with who he is, and, you know, is prepared and knows all the rules and regulations of the community. And I don't think he's ever really given a massive amount of consideration to Callum's aspect in that. He's just kind of accepted the fact that they're married and and everything's going to be fine. So I'm actually kind of intrigued to see where this is going to go, if I'm honest with you. Who I didn't think I'd be saying that when this storyline started at the start of the week, but it turns out I'm kind of into it. So there you go. I'm nothing but unpredictable.
Yeah, it's just another turbulent path for Ballum, isn't it?
Well, it's been a good 7 weeks since we last had.
Will they ever have a week? I was going to say, will they ever have a week when they're just happy to be together?
Yes, but off camera.
Yes. Filling in the gaps ourselves. We've got Chelsea and Denise, and Denise's Denise's not very happy and thinks that Chelsea is jumping in too early for getting married with Gray, and has been quite vocal about it this week. And I have written down on my notes here, theory by Rob. The floor is with you, Rob.
Well, now, this is the thing. I'd love to take credit for this theory. I genuinely would. And frankly, after this week, he's getting one mention, and then I will be taking it for my own. However, my friend Cal has been talking to me about this storyline, and he's actually given me a theory that makes total sense, and I now think it's really obvious, and I can't believe I didn't see it earlier. I agree with him completely. I don't think Chelsea's pregnant. I think she did lose the baby when she had that little misadventure last week, and I think that she's now stringing Gray along, and that's going to be revealed at the wedding day, and that's how everything's going to go mad. I think that she is fully aware of what she's doing, because if you remember, when they got back to Gray's flat, she was straight on that she was quite prepared to have a glass of champagne. And a woman who has just had a scare, but has been told that everything's fine, would not go straight to a bottle of champagne. Wouldn't happen. Even Chelsea wouldn't happen. I am 1,000,000,000% convinced that girl is no more pregnant than I am. I look more pregnant than she is, but I don't believe that Chelsea's pregnant. There you go.
And in danger, apparently. Then,
massive danger.
Gray finding out would probably be very, very dangerous. How will they then? Let's run with this then. Mm-hmm. How will they portray this on screen? Do you think they'll let us know somewhere by her saying she's going to an ultrasound, and then you see her sat in the park eating a sandwich and having a can of Tennent's, or and a bag, just to reassure us that she's not pregnant? Or do you think that they're going to keep it a secret from us as well, and it'll be on the wedding day that she
I think we might
on the wedding day she eventually find out?
Well, possibly. Or she's going to have a conversation with Whitney, which sort of links back to what we've been wondering as to whether Chelsea and Whitney are going to start working together. Yes, they're going to start working together. We're not going to go two-hander. That's not going to happen in a million years. But it's going to... I
hope so.
Oh, I hope so.
Come on, Jon Sen.
Oh, I hope so, but it won't happen. Ever since that theory, he said all this to me over message, and I was kind of staring at it like, well, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I see any of that? It's so obvious, isn't it? Chelsea's not pregnant in the slightest. I'm convinced of it. And I think that we're going to get a moment in the next week or so where something, like you say, we'll have a moment where we follow her into a room and something will happen that shouldn't happen if she was pregnant, and we'll discover it. Which means that Gray will have now had 2 potential wives lying to him about being pregnant. That's not going to be great for his mental health, really, is it? Because Chantal did exactly the same thing. Admittedly for her own protection and for less nasty reasons than Chelsea's going to be doing it. But that's, yeah, there you go.
It's strange, though, that Chelsea, if she's not pregnant, wants to marry Gray still, though.
Money. Because she still thinks that he's rich.
She
has no idea that he's working at McDonald's.
Last week. We kind of rested last week that we thought that maybe she wanted... She knew everything. She knew everything about Gray, or she at least knew some of the pieces of how Gray could be, because she warned Whitney like a few months back. So why is she now trying to go back into it? Do you think it can't be just for money, surely?
I don't know.
Can it?
I don't know. She's not exactly, especially since she's returned, she's not exactly been someone who's not... We know this about Chelsea. She likes a flash bloke. She likes the flash bloke on her arm, and she likes the flash bloke on her arm's credit card. And as far as she's concerned, everything is going fine for Gray in terms of the job, and Gray is the only person that knows exactly how much money problems he's got at the moment. He's not told anybody about this. He didn't even tell Whitney. I don't know whether Whitney's been paid yet. Remember, she was harassing her. Have you paid me yet? I don't know whether that's happened yet, but no, I don't think Whitney's been paid. To me now it makes total sense, and I'm going to be surprised if it's otherwise, because and Chelsea likes all that kind of thing, and I think that she thinks that Gray is still rich, and she's decided to just go along with it. Who knows? What do you think?
Fair enough. Well, I'm happy to ride that train and see exactly where the story goes further down the line. Yes, choo-choo. Talking of person who wants money, she's starting a crowdfunder for her daughter, Pearl, and that's Kim. Because Kim has recently discovered that Pearl is bored at school because she's not being put up to her full kind of potential of being able to learn, because she's a super smart kid. Yeah, Pearl is a genius. And so Kim has decided that she's going to make lots of live videos on Instagram where she believes that you can stop for commercial breaks. I don't know.
We'll be back after the break.
I don't know anyone who's used Instagram, but yeah. I mean, you can't just stop and start a live stream like that, but okay, fine, Kim, give it a go. But she's starting a crowdfund for Pearl. So, where do you think this could be? Do you think that basically Kim is kind of distracting herself, and she's still not over the fact that she's learned about Vincent?
Yeah,
and that further down the line, this kind of this is going to keep stewing until one day she's just going to explode.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think this is, because a few weeks ago she was convinced that Phil had killed Vincent. We've not heard anything more about that theory from her little brain yet. So that must be what this is. Either that or she's trying to get the money for a private detective to follow Phil around or something. I don't know. I mean, it's just Kim going in wacky, zany directions like she does so well. And Denise is just sort of looking at her kind of like, what are you doing, you strange woman? I don't know.
Yeah, what's happening?
The teacher turns up at the salon this week, because because teachers make home visits now, it turns out. They go, I'll meet you at work. Yeah, that's fine. And she learns that Pearl is apparently a genius, and Pearl is Pearl sat in the back of it whilst the rest of the children are reading their ABC. Pearl's in the back doing a Sudoku. You know, she's having a great. She's bored as hell at school. Because now Kim's plan is to get her sent to some sort of private school, despite the fact that Denise turned around to her and was like, "You do realise that Libby went to a state school and she's now at Oxford, so none of this is really necessary, Kim." But no, Kim's got an idea in her head and she's going for it. But yeah, I do wonder if that's more to do with the fact that she's just trying to distract herself and also she's trying to distract Pearl from the news that she's lost her father and trying to cope with the idea of death. Because I thought that when this teacher turned up, he was going to sort of explain to her that she'd been playing up in class, which would be quite a normal response for a little kid who's just found out her dad's dead. You know, sort of playing up in class. But the teacher's like, no, I agree. She's an absolute genius. Mensa is calling for your daughter, I'm afraid. So I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if this whole thing with Phil kind of comes back into play. Phil's in Portugal at the moment, so until Phil gets back from Portugal, there's not going to be any sort of progression on that. But for the moment, Kim seems to have sort of let that issue lie, which I think is more to Denise's relief than anybody else's. So who knows? So we'll see where it goes in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I think there's more to it than just Kim having a mad little storyline, because it would seem wrong for her to, because Kim does this. She will have these, mad little 2-week storylines where she gets obsessed about something and then she'll do mad things to try and make it achieve and then fall flat on her face. But it seems like a strange time for her to have one of those moments while she's in the middle of a slightly more serious story. So yeah, I feel that there's something else kind of going on with her thinking.
It has to be to do with Vincent. I don't think we've finished that story just yet. But it's nice that Pearl is like super genius. Maybe she could end up like when she's 18 looking for her dad. That'd be it's the long-term story we're like looking ahead for. Never know. Yeah. One final story then we're going to talk about quickly is Jean and Stacey and them having a bit of a fallout this week over Eve going missing. They did make up eventually, but when they did make up, a couple of things that happened kind of outside of that kind of story is I found a bit more interesting, and that is that Stacey and Kheerat has started kind of talking and being a lot more close and personal with each other, and also Tommy broke his foot. Or has done something to his foot by playing football, even though, and Kat said it quite implicitly, like it was some kind of addiction, some kind of drug to Tommy. It's like, don't ever give him a football, because as soon as you give him a football, he'll want to play football. And if he starts playing football, he's going to not be able to play football.
He'll break his leg. He will break his leg. Do not give him a football.
Yeah, and it's going to ruin his career, and no one's going to know what's going to happen. It's just nuts. So, first of all then, Stacey and Kheerat, what do you think is happening with them too? Because obviously Martin might still want to get back together again after he's found out that the baby isn't his.
I get the impression from Stacey that she's kind of over Martin now. You know, when she first came back and Martin was sort of like, there was no regret in Stacey's kind of stance or anything when she was having that conversation. She was literally like, "Don't be stupid, Martin, get over yourself." I don't think she's got any interest in mine. I think she's done with that phase of her life and she's now moving on to more interesting things. And yeah, I mean, her and Kheerat work quite well together. I am reminded so much of that amazing episode where they actually did that together for the first time, and they had that whole kind of long scene together where they were talking about each other, and Stacey was remembering Bradley, and they would just sit with each other for a bit of comfort. And Stacey said, "This'll happen, and now I'm not going to speak to you for months," and she genuinely didn't. But then, to be fair, she went to prison, so maybe it might have happened sooner. Who knows? But yeah, there's chemistry now redeveloping between Kheerat and Stacey. Where I want this to go now is for Janine to get her claws into Kheerat, and for that to have a good old fashioned, tear up between Stacey and Janine about Kheerat, because I think Janine and Kheerat could be an interesting pair. But then that just goes back to the fact that I'm desperate for Janine and Suki to go head to head and have a rivalry. So maybe I'm just writing my own fan fiction at this point. I don't know. But just for the time being, it looks very likely that Stacey and Kheerat are going to start sort of getting that together again, which I suppose, again, does make things interesting because Suki is currently trying to kick the Slaters out for their annual homeless Christmas storyline. I can't believe we're here again. The Slaters being homeless at Christmas. Why is it were we here last year? Or was it the year before that the Slaters were homeless at Christmas?
Doesn't it happen every year? It does, despite which family it is that looks after the thing. It's always around Christmas that there's some kind of crisis happening where the Slaters need to be rehomed somewhere along the line.
And at the minute they're literally sat in the square gardens trying to find somewhere for them to live. Lily's taken to calling it Slater Towers. Jean's got the idea of a bachelorette pad in her head with a jacuzzi and cocktails. It's all very strange. But yeah, this whole thing with Tommy. Now, for the love of God, explain to me why this whole thing with the fire. Tommy seemed fine. He was running around. He was kicking his football around. He wasn't on his crutches or anything like that. And yet this is the thing that him falling over and apparently breaking his leg. Broken legs can be repaired. Broken legs heal at some point. It's not going to ruin his football career.
Yeah, but they don't.
So what was the point of the fire?
Necessarily heal properly.
No, but
do they? They don't necessarily heal properly. I will give that defence.
Okay,
there, but I would have thought that the fact that Tommy got thrown out of a window by a fire like a backdraft, as they're called, when it's kind of boom and he fell out the back of the window, that's probably more likely would have been the thing that would have ruined his career.
Yes.
And I feel like what makes this even kind of like less interesting is the fact that we've gone weeks not having an ounce of an update about what's happened to Tommy. And this week we just had a passing comment that Tommy is feeling a bit better but still misses football at the beginning of the week. And then at the end of the week you just saw him and he hid how did he hide a football? Also in a bag. It's like, it's not like it's a flat object or a tiny little thing, is it? It's like a football. It's it's a big thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, is no one looking?
Yep.
Oh, okay then. Here's my ball.
Been there for weeks. He's hidden that ball in a bush weeks ago, and he comes out in the middle of the night when everyone's asleep in the house and just kicks the football around the square. That would have been nice, wouldn't it? Like a completely unrelated scene in the middle of the night, two characters are having a conversation, and all of a sudden they hear this sort of thudding sound, which is a ball, but it sounds like a ball being kicked against a wall. Who would be doing that at midnight? And then it's revealed at the end of the week that it was Tommy practicing football when everyone else was asleep in the square. That would have been nice. No. But the other thing, of course, is the madness that Kat has said that she's going to move in with Phil when the Mitchell's house is repaired. Again, we've had no update of the Mitchell's house disrepair. We haven't even seen the house since it got blown up. We've barely. I don't think actually we've seen Phil since the house got blown up. Really, have we? Apart from the odd scene in the cab, the completely unrelated scenes in the cab office where he was doing where he was talking to Kim about Vincent. Oh, it's so frustrating because why don't we know any of this?
This is it. This is all stuff that we're just kind of... One day it will just be like, bing, here we go. We're there. Here's the new Mitchell house. And do you think there's going to be a complete redesign of the house?
Oh, I think they might change the wallpaper.
Oh, of course they changed the wallpaper, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be visibly still the Mitchell house, I think. Yeah, and they're going to have to have put Sharon... They're going to have to have done something with Sharon's wine cupboard. You know, the days where she used to just have a stressful day and then go home and neck room temperature white out of the cupboard. So the kitchen will...
Or feel safe as well. Feel safe.
Oh, I'm sure there's still millions of pounds sat in there absolutely fine. That I guarantee that when we first go in the Mitchell house, there will be a scene where Phil has to go into his safe and there will be 75 grand just sat there. A little bit singed, but other than that, absolutely fine. I don't know.
75 grand plus the mobile phone of Vincent being shot.
That's under the roof. That's under the
Phil
floor in the Archers.
To somehow, again off screen, grab it. Yeah, but don't forget, originally it was in that safe.
Was
and
it?
Then that's where... Yeah, but originally, because he said, I was able to get back into the fire to get this before the house.
Oh, right,
exploded.
okay.
We've talked about this before.
Yes,
We've talked about this before because you said, "Oh no, it was always in the pit."
I was trying to make it make sense in my head. It makes much more sense for him to have hidden that from the beginning underneath the floor in the arches rather than in his own house. hey, you know, who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
All right then. Well, there we go then. So that was the week in Walford once more, and all the stories that went down there. I mean.
Quite the week. It was a week.
Interesting what happened. Yeah.
It was a week. Well, let's see what happens next week.
It was a week.
We'll talk about
how can people get in touch with us then, Rob, to let us know what they thought about this week's EastEnders?
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast. On YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe using the little bell buttons to get notifications about our spoiler videos and possibly for the Walford, which is soon returning from a brand new set, by which they mean they've changed rooms in the house. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Walford Weekly, and you can email me at robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or at alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. We will be back next week. I may have had more sleep by then. Who knows? I might not have done. I might never sleep again. But until then, thank you very much for listening and watching. We love you all very, very much. And do go and check out our discussion about the exit of Jon Sen, which Alex will flash across the screen in a fabulous style right now. And you might stick it in the show notes if you're lucky. So until next week, it is au revoir from me.
And it's bon chance from me. Bye.
Bye.
You know me, I ain't one to gossip.